Welcome to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast, a relaxing and informative show where we explore anxiety, panic, and PTSD, sharing how you can overcome them for life.
Aloha! Welcome back to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Gina Ryan, and I am so happy to be with you again today as together we can consider the many ways to bring your mind and body back to its natural peace and calm. In today's episode, I am talking about managing anxiety, difficult emotions, and situations with radical acceptance. I have a quote to start us off, and this is from Tara Brach. We spend our time and energy defending our life rather than living it fully. Again, that's from Tara Brach. I'll have a link to her book, Radical Acceptance, in the show notes if you would like to read it. Tara Brach wrote just a lovely, lovely book on this, and you can either listen to it or you could read it. It's wonderful. Again, that link will be in the show notes for you, but she's brilliant. So how can we live more fully and peacefully? What I learned from Marsha Linehan in her DBT training, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, is that we can live more fully and peacefully when we change the behaviors in our lives that are creating suffering for both ourselves and others, while also accepting ourselves the way we are. Simply put, this is not acceptance or change, but acceptance and change, and we can learn to hold both. Most of the time when we're anxious, we don't see that that's a possibility. So what we need to do is to be completely accepting things without judging them. This moment in time that is happening does not need to be judged. It's like a domino falling that was in a long line of other dominoes that are all being knocked down, one knocking the next one down. This moment didn't just spring up spontaneously into existence. It is a part of life. It is a part of everything that has happened before us. Radical acceptance is the practice of accepting this reality as it is without judgment or resistance. It involves acknowledging and accepting the present moment, including any uncomfortable or difficult emotions, situations, rather than trying to avoid or change them. And with anxiety, we add so much unnecessary fuel to our anxious fire by jumping into either avoidance or the fix-it mode when we encounter difficulty. For example, imagine you're stuck in traffic and running late for an important meeting or picking the kids up. You know what I mean, that feeling of being stuck. You can either resist the situation, you can become frustrated, angry, or anxious and wishing that the traffic would magically disappear, or you can accept the situation as it is. It doesn't mean you like it. You acknowledge that you are stuck in traffic and there's nothing you can do about it. By accepting the situation, you can reduce your stress and your anxiety and focus on finding ways to cope with the situation, such as using the extra time to listen to some nice music or an audio book, or you could listen to a podcast or practice mindfulness or say your prayers, your mantras, or listen to affirmations. Repeat your own affirmations. It could be viewed as actual free time, nowhere to go and nothing to do. It's just a perspective shift. Radical acceptance is a useful tool for managing difficult emotions and situations because it allows us to stop fighting against reality, which we just jump into when we are already anxious or stressed out. And instead we focus on taking effective action to address the situation. When we do this, it helps us to develop greater resilience, emotional intelligence, and overall well-being by promoting a sense of inner peace, acceptance, and compassion toward ourselves and others. Now, I want you to keep in mind that radical acceptance doesn't mean giving up or resigning yourself to a negative situation. Instead, it involves acknowledging the reality. This is what we're trying to get to, the reality of the situation, and finding ways to cope with it in a way that is productive and effective. Because when we jump into fight or flight, we switch off our executive functioning fully, and we have less power available to make the best decisions and action plans. We've dimmed that down. We can't think as clearly. But by practicing radical acceptance, you can cultivate a greater sense of inner strength and resilience and develop the skills you need to manage whatever life throws your way. So here are some steps that you can take to learn and practice radical acceptance. It's going to be good for you to know how you can do this. So first off, I want you to recognize that resistance, and you all, anybody who's here listening to this show knows resistance to reality, and it causes suffering. This is where pain comes from. We are causing ourselves pain and suffering by resisting. So the first step to practicing radical acceptance is to acknowledge that resistance to reality, such as denying or avoiding difficult emotions or situations, creates more suffering in the long run. Accepting reality as it is can help us to reduce our stress, anxiety, and other negative emotions. So we're really letting ourselves have our full brain capacity when we can stay out of fight or flight. And by accepting reality, we do that. The second thing is to develop more mindfulness. We talk about mindfulness here a lot, but mindfulness is the practice of being present in the moment and observing our thoughts and emotions without judging them. Now, we can do this in practice on our meditation cushion, so to speak, or we can do it at any moment, at any time. We can practice being in the present moment and not judging it. It can help us to become more aware of our own resistance to reality and cultivate a sense of acceptance and compassion toward ourselves and others. The next one is, I want you to practice self-compassion. Self-compassion involves treating yourself with kindness and understanding, even when you're facing difficult emotions or situations. This can help you to develop greater resilience and inner strength and make it easier to accept reality as it is. This is all going to start being a beautiful cycle that feeds itself. The next one is, I want you to reframe your negative thoughts. When you notice negative thoughts or emotions rising, see if you can reframe them by looking at them differently, in a more accepting way. For example, instead of thinking, this is familiar for me, oh my God, I can't stand this situation. I know maybe most of you are not that stressed or verbal as that was my thing. Oh my God, here we go, or I can't stand this situation. Try something else. Change it up a little bit. And at first you really have to practice this, but over time it will become your new way of seeing the situation. So here we go. Instead of, oh my God, I can't stand this situation, try saying, this situation is difficult, but I can handle it. Do you see where we're going here? We are not denying the reality of the situation. We are not saying, oh, this is lovely. or turning a negative into a positive, we're going to neutral. We are saying, this situation is difficult, but I can handle it. And I know each and every one of you can handle it, because if you've been struggling with anxiety, you have handled a lot. The next one that you can try is to use visualization. Some people are better at visualization than others, but it can be a powerful tool for cultivating a sense of acceptance and calm. Try visualizing a peaceful place or situation and focus on the sensations and emotions that are associated with that image. And like I said, some people are really good at this, and you probably can do it just with me saying it, you conjuring up. And others, it just doesn't come to you. Don't worry, we can't all be great at everything. We have plenty of other things we can try. And finally, start by practicing with the small stuff on a daily basis. So this is not where you have to carve out 20 minutes or 10 minutes and go in a quiet room and practice on yourself. No, you're going to let life be your teacher. For example, if you spill coffee on your shirt or on the table, try accepting the situation rather than getting upset. With practice, radical acceptance can become a habit, making it easier to cope with difficult emotions and situations in the future. So I hope you can see that, the idea of being able to see something happening in your life, letting life be your teacher. Maybe it's in traffic that you are going to get that feeling of, oh no, I don't want this. Or maybe, again, it was like, spilling coffee on your shirt, like I said, or missing an appointment because you didn't have it written down at the right time. Many, many things are going to come up. These will be your new trigger to look at it differently. Instead of getting upset and going into that direction, just bring it back into the middle with neutral and accept it. This is what happened. Accept the situation rather than going to the negative. You're just pulling it back. Like I said, we're not saying, oh, isn't this awesome? I missed the meeting. Yay for me. Because whatever it is could be, again, it's another domino going down. Who knows what that's going to mean downstream? We don't know. So don't try to figure it out. Just bring it back to neutral again and say, this is what happened. You accept it. And sometimes you can accept it with saying, isn't that interesting? This is what I try to tell clients. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be negative. It can just be interesting. It's non-judgmental, but it's acknowledging I see the difficulty. I see it for what it is clearly. And if I see it as just interesting, I am not going down the slippery slope of the wormhole and getting my brain, all its energy going to the amygdala instead of the executive functioning where I need to make decisions and plans and have conversations. No, it all goes to the amygdala when we go down the wormhole. So if we keep things just interesting instead of devastating, or isn't that awful, or my favorite, oh my God, here we go, instead of going there, we pull it back just a little. It's not too far to say, isn't that interesting? All you're doing is acknowledging what is there. You're not judging it. You're not putting a lot of heavy emotions on it. And believe me, this does become a habit after a while. So please practice this one. And I want you to remember that practicing radical acceptance is an ongoing process. It's probably going to take time for you to develop this skill. So leave yourself some notes or stickies in your calendar or wherever you have reminders for yourself so that you can ask yourself, am I practicing radical acceptance? Or am I off and about running down the wormhole with like my hair's on fire and everything is an emergency. Some things are an emergency, and even then you do better to keep your head, to not go off into fight or flight where you can't think straight. Keep yourself calm, keep yourself neutral, keep yourself in radical acceptance. Be patient with yourself and celebrate the small victories along the way. With regular practice, you can develop greater emotional resilience, inner strength, and overall well-being. And an easy way to remember radical acceptance is to recall the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. If you can have that one in your head and pull it up when things get difficult, it will steer you in the right direction. Now remember, I was recommending early on that you look at or listen to Tara Brach's book, Radical Acceptance. I usually have clients read this if it is appropriate for them. And the subtitle of it is Embracing Your Life with the Heart of a Buddha. And now she is a therapist and a Buddhist practitioner, and her information is suited for all of you. I hope that you will check that out if you are interested in reading something new. It's an old book, but it's a classic, so I think if you haven't read it, you would do well to read it. Maybe listen to it, because I believe that Tara reads it, and she has a beautiful voice for narration. You know, if you are getting something out of these shows, these episodes, if you have someone you know that could use a little bit more peace and calm in their life, please recommend the show to them. I can't reach everyone on social media or, just on the web. So a personal recommendation from you might really be helpful for them. They may never have come across the show otherwise. So do be sure to share if you know someone who could use a little more peace and calm in their lives. And if you are looking to hear these shows free from ads, just click the link in the show notes and join the Supercast Premium Access membership. It's only $5 a month, and we'd love to have you in there. And now for today's quote. Clearly recognizing what is happening inside us and regarding what we see with an open, kind, and loving heart is what I call radical acceptance. And that's from Tara Brach. I'll be back in a few more days with another podcast. Until then, be well and aloha.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode of the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. Find more information at theanxietycoachespodcast.com.